The following program is a CEV Videoactive presentation. Videoactive is an interactive format designed to enhance learning by combining student participation, class discussion, and assessment. Videoactive programs are divided into sections for ease of use. Each section is identified with both color and numeric codes located in the lower right corner of your monitor. At any time, you may rewind or fast forward to a desired section. CEV presents Food Safety and Sanitation, a videoactive presentation. The goal of food safety and sanitation is to teach the principles and practices associated with the safe handling of foods. Therefore, the objectives are to study the principles of safe and sanitary food handling, to study the means by which foods become contaminated by pathogenic organisms, and to study the proper procedures for cooking and storing foods. Food safety and sanitation can be divided into three sections: introduction, sanitation, and contamination, cooking, and cooling. Following each section, a series of review questions will be presented. If you need more time to answer the questions or for discussion, stop the tape at any time.
Food safety is often based on sanitation. Sanitation is one of the most important aspects of food preparation, whether in a food service establishment such as a restaurant or cafeteria, or at home. Sanitation is defined as the creation and maintenance of conditions favorable to good health. Its importance is to create an environment free of harmful levels of disease-causing microorganisms and other harmful contaminants. Although many aspects of preparing food, such as eye appeal and portion control, are important, the sanitary conditions and techniques used before, during, and after preparation are the most important in order to prevent foodborne illness. What exactly is foodborne illness and how can it be prevented? First, foodborne illness is a disease that is carried or transmitted to human beings by food. There are many rules to follow to prevent foodborne illness, and they are all based on one key term: sanitation.
Prepare for questions from Section 1. True or false? 1. Sanitation is an important aspect of food preparation. 2. Sanitation is important in restaurants, but not at home. 3. Sanitation is defined as the creation and maintenance of conditions favorable to good health. 4. The goal of sanitation is to create an environment free of harmful levels of microorganisms and contaminants. 5. Sanitation is important in preventing foodborne illness. 6. Sanitation is important only during the preparation of food and not before or after. 7. Foodborne illness is defined as a disease that is transmitted to humans by food. If you need more time to answer the questions or for discussion, stop the tape.
One of the most important sanitation rules to follow to prevent foodborne illness is to maintain personal hygiene standards. This includes the most critical aspect of personal cleanliness, which is frequent and thorough hand washing. Dirty hands and fingernails are often the cause of foodborne illness. Hand washing should always follow activities such as, number 1, using the restroom, 2, using a handkerchief or tissue, 3, handling raw foods, particularly meat and poultry, 4, touching areas of the face, such as mouth, nose, or hair, and number 5, eating food or drinking beverages. Gloves can provide an additional sanitary barrier between the food and the food handler, but should not be used to avoid hand washing. Fingernails should be trimmed and cleaned. Long fingernails, false nails, and acrylic nails can break off into food and cause contamination, as can fingernail polish, so each is discouraged in food preparation. Proper hair restraint may require barrettes, a hairnet, hats, or caps to prevent contamination. Such activities as using tobacco products, chewing gum, or tasting food with a stirring spoon should be prohibited in the food preparation area. Another important rule is to prevent anyone from preparing or handling food if they are ill or have open or infected cuts, since the microorganisms causing the illness or infection could easily be transmitted to the food causing illness to others. The third rule concerns all raw food products. The presence of bacteria is inevitable on or in many raw foods. Thorough washing with warm water will remove many microorganisms from the food surface. The next rule concerns temperature control. As you know, frozen foods are stored at 0 degrees or below. Water freezes at 32 degrees, and refrigerators' temperatures should be 45 degrees or below. Microorganisms such as bacteria grow and reproduce best between 40 degrees and 145 degrees. Therefore, this range is called the temperature danger zone. It is desired to keep foods out of the temperature zone to prevent food spoilage and growth of bacteria. The highest temperature the human hand can endure is 120 degrees, but most harmful bacteria are not destroyed until 180 degrees, and water boils at 212 degrees. This diagram should show you how the temperatures relate to one another, how broad the temperature danger zone is, and how easily a food product can enter the zone if not carefully monitored. Cold foods should be kept at less than 45 degrees, and hot foods at least 140 degrees. The next rule concerns equipment, utensil, and work area sanitation. The equipment, utensils, and work area should first be clean, free of visible soil. Scrape and pre-rinse with warm water to remove any loose particles. In a 3-compartment sink, place utensils in the first compartment containing a clean detergent solution at least 120 degrees. Use a cloth or a brush to remove any remaining particles. Rinse in the second compartment using clear, clean water at 120 degrees or above to remove all traces of food and detergent. Sanitize in the third compartment by immersing items in hot water at 170 degrees for 30 seconds or in a chemical sanitizer according to manufacturer's instructions. Air dry. Do not wipe dry. Wiping with a cloth can recontaminate equipment and utensils which were just sanitized. Wooden surfaces such as cutting boards or wood-handled utensils should not be submerged, but scraped, scrubbed, rinsed, and wiped with a suitable sanitizing solution. Equipment which is stationary or too large for the sinks should be scraped and pre-rinsed. Washed with 120-degree water. Rinsed with 120-degree water. wiped with a suitable sanitizing solution, and allowed to air dry. The last rule concerns the food itself. If a can is punctured or the expiration date on the package is near, do not use, since bacteria could have gained access to the food inside. If in doubt about the safety or freshness of any food, throw it out.
Prepare for questions from Section 2. Quiz 2, true or false? 1. Personal hygiene is important in maintaining sanitary conditions. 2. Hand washing is the most important personal hygiene practice. 'Multiple choice. 3. Hands should always be washed after A. Using the restroom, B. Handling raw foods, C. Eating, drinking, or smoking, D. All of the above. 4. In which of the following ways can fingernails contaminate food? A. Dirt and contaminants under nails. B. Nails break off into food. C. Nail polish may come off in food. D. All of the above. 5. Which of the following is not an acceptable hair restraint? A. Hairspray. B. Hat or cap. C. Barrette or clip. D. Hairnet. 6. Which of the following is allowed in the food preparation area? A. Chewing gum. B. Using tobacco products. C. Tasting food with stirring spoons. D. None of the above. 7. Food prep workers should not be allowed to handle food under which of the following circumstances? A. The worker is ill. B. The worker has an open wound. C. The worker has an infected wound. D. All of the above. 8. Which of the following does washing foods accomplish? A. Makes them fresher. B. Makes them cook faster. C. Removes microorganisms. D. All of the above. Short answer, 9. At what temperature should frozen foods be stored? Ten. Below what temperature should refrigerators and coolers be kept? (11) The temperature danger zone is between what two temperatures? (12) Why is it important to keep foods out of the temperature danger zone? (13) Most harmful bacteria are destroyed at what temperature? (14) When washing dishes, what temperature should the solution in each of the three sinks be? (15) How should all utensils and equipment be dried? 16. Name the 5 steps and proper cleaning procedures of large or stationary equipment. If you need more time to answer the questions or for discussion, stop the tape.
Now it's time for a review. See if you can identify the mistake in this scene. The mistake shown here violates rule number 3. Although Robert washed his hands, he forgot to wash the vegetables before adding them to the salad. Now the next scene. Rule number 1 is broken several times here. First, where is her hair restraint? Shelley should have had a hairnet or a barrette to prevent contamination. Second, once she touched her hair or face, her hands could have picked up some of the bacteria naturally found in either place. She should have washed her hands before continuing with her preparation. Now watch this scene. Did he ever hear about rule number 6? If the milk smelt funny, it could have been because bacteria were growing and breaking down proteins which caused the strange odor and could cause illness. Always check expiration dates, and if in doubt, throw it out. Check this last clip for any mistakes. This mistake concerns rule number 4. The green beans had been setting on the cabinet for an unknown period of time. The temperature shown on the thermometer was in the temperature danger zone, where bacteria grow and multiply rapidly. If the food was eaten, foodborne illness would likely have occurred.
Well, one of the most common mistakes that's made in food processing or food handling is the cross-contamination issue. And cross-contamination occurs when some unsanitary surface comes in contact with a surface that is sanitary and transfers bacteria or other pathogens to that once clean sanitary surface. A good example of this, for example, would be taking out a cutting board and cutting up a chicken on the cutting board, and then once the chicken's removed, simply wiping down the cutting board with a wet cloth and then coming along behind that and chopping lettuce or some sort of vegetable that's not going to receive any further cooking. The problem is when the bacteria were on the cutting board, they were deposited on that surface, and simply wiping the surface down does not remove the bacteria. So now we've got bacteria that get transferred to the surface of the vegetable, and then if it doesn't receive any further cooking especially, it can be a significant health hazard. I think probably another issue that's of interest these days to both probably people in food service and to people at home is thorough cooking of foods. We have to assume that all raw meat products or fish products contain pathogens. We must make that assumption. Now, that's not necessarily true, but we need to handle them as though they contain those pathogens. So what that requires is that we must keep all those raw products under refrigeration, and then once it's time to cook them, we need to be sure and cook them thoroughly. Probably of greatest interest these days is ground beef. Ground beef in 1993 was implicated in a rather large outbreak with E. coli 0157H7, and as a result, over 450 people were ill, and 3 children died from consuming undercooked ground beef. and that can be eliminated or prevented by thoroughly cooking the beef product. So now the recommendation is for ground beef, we've got to be sure to cook it to 155 degrees Fahrenheit in order to kill those pathogens. I think another issue where both food service and consumers alike make mistakes is when they have leftover foods or foods that they're holding hot prior to eating. If you've got a leftover food, what you've got to do is cool that food down to 41 degrees Fahrenheit within 4 hours. So what that means is don't leave it sitting out at room temperature. Once you're finished serving the food, cover it up, put it in the refrigerator, and then let it come down to temperature. Now the problem becomes is if you've got a big food item, like maybe a roast or something, it doesn't cool down very rapidly, so you have to be sure to reduce the mass so that it does cool within the 4-hour period. But the key is to bring it down to 41 within 4 hours. That's our standard rule of thumb on cooling hot foods. One of the things that consumers have to realize is that especially any raw animal product is going to have bacteria in it, and it's very likely that there's a pathogen in it. Now, there may not be large numbers of pathogens present, but there could be a few in those products. And so that could be anything from meat to fish products, eggs. So any raw product, it needs to be handled as though it might have a pathogen present because they are fairly prevalent. I think another thing that consumers need to think about too are their fruits and vegetables. Most of us don't consider getting foodborne illness from fresh fruits or vegetables, but there's been a number of cases. I'll use one specific example where salmonella was transmitted on the outside of a cantaloupe. And so somewhere when that cantaloupe was being produced in the field, salmonella contaminated the outside of the cantaloupe, and before that product was cut up and consumed, it was not washed. So when the person preparing them cut through the outside across the inside, they transferred the salmonella from the outside to the surface of the cantaloupe. And then if you leave that cantaloupe at room temperature, that allows the salmonella then to grow. So that's kind of an unconventional way to get salmonella because we usually don't think of fruits and vegetables, but that's highly possible. And the best way to avoid that type of problem is to just wash your fruits and vegetables, the outside of them, with soap and water. That should remove pathogens that are present, and it can help remove any pesticide residues that would be present. Another issue people tend to forget about is leaving things out at room temperature. A good example is when the family goes out on a Sunday picnic and they've got their ham salad or their turkey salad sandwich, and they leave it sitting out, you know, like we've been having these 90-degree days or 100-degree days. Well, even a few pathogens present on that product at the beginning of the day can turn into millions of them by lunchtime. So it's wise to be sure and keep any potentially hazardous food refrigerated and don't allow it to sit out at room temperature.
Prepare for questions from Section 3. True or false? 1. Cross-contamination occurs when an unsanitary surface comes in contact with a sanitary surface. Two, all meat, poultry, and fish products are free of pathogens. Three, to kill harmful bacteria, ground meat products should be cooked to at least 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Four, When cooling leftover food, the food should be cooled to 41 degrees Fahrenheit within 4 hours. Five, fruits and vegetables cannot be contaminated by harmful pathogens. Six, the best way to prevent foodborne illness from fruits and vegetables is to wash them thoroughly before processing or serving. If you need more time to answer the questions or for discussion, stop the tape. Prepare for a 10-question final quiz. Short answer. 1. Give a brief definition of sanitation. 2. Why is sanitation important when preparing, serving, and storing food? 3. What is the most important personal hygiene practice? 4. Why is it necessary to wash raw meat and produce before cooking or serving? 5. What two temperatures define the temperature danger zone? 6. How does keeping foods out of the temperature danger zone prevent foodborne illness? 7. How should a product be handled if it is near its expiration date or if the container is damaged? 8. What is the term for contamination of a food product from an unsanitary surface? 9. To what temperature should ground meat products be cooked to prevent foodborne illness? 10. What is the best way to prevent foodborne illness from foods which are served raw? 'If you need more time to answer the questions or for discussion, stop the tape.